For me, it is my dude, almost guaranteed not to be said by a man. Story 1. People diagnosing others they do not know with mental illness or using terms like gaslighting, narcissist, and projecting. Also, terms like husband and wife. Story 2. Tell me you are underscore without telling me you are underscore. This is so lame, particularly when used as an insult. It just feels pathetically passive-aggressive. Story 3. Absolutism mostly. Either you are completely aligned with me on this and every issue and always have been, or you are a bad person and deserve to rot in hell for eternity. Also, for being so left-leaning and progressive, Reddit has a strong preference for punitive incarceration and locking people up for as long as possible over relatively minor offenses. Prison and the justice system in general should be rehabilitative, not punitive. Story 4. You do realize that, right? Reeks of condescension and drives me mad. Also, please be quiet about the game Tetris. Story 5. I have this friend, we will call him Gary. You do not have to tell everyone you are using fake names. Story 6. When someone is trying to convey a sense of empathy by saying, "Oh honey," it just sounds so condescending to me. Story 7. People calling themselves introverted when they mean shy. I understand there are overlaps, but shy does not equal introverted. Story 8. Using loose when you mean lose is rampant and very irritating. Also, please make a minimal effort. End of rant. Story 9. Get therapy is usually said by people who have obviously failed to learn anything from their own sessions and whose therapists continue to see them for years. These dysfunctional adults often also believe in astrology and Myers-Briggs personality types horoscopes. Pretty much anything that justifies their behavior and allows them to avoid accountability for their own decisions and mistakes. Story 10. Fix that for you. It is almost always used when someone is being unpleasant and arguing in bad faith. Closely followed is X here. As a template, it is weak. There are better ways to write the same thing. Story 11. Most people may not agree with me, but some abbreviations annoy me. If it is not a common acronym, just write it out the first time and then use the acronym thereafter. I would read something like, "Good to your team soon," and I just cannot figure out what it means. Story 12. The all lowercase anti-capital letterists. So the thing I like about this is that XYZ and ABC because I'm aware of that, and uppercase letters are outdated. Story 13. The large number of logical fallacies used by many people on this application is concerning. Additionally, some individuals search through others' comment history to discredit an argument. This behavior suggests that they do not have evidence to support their claims, realize they lost the argument, and still want to appear victorious. Story 14. There are too many abbreviations that I do not always understand or remember. I often have to search the web to find their full meanings. Sometimes, an abbreviation has another common usage, which makes it more confusing. Story 15. These people who use acronyms like advanced video coding to describe a phrase expect everyone to know what it means. Story 16. My brother in Christ. Sweetie. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Mate, from an American. Is the point just made in the room with us right now? Story 17. Nothing in particular, but when a comment has a comment which has a comment and so on infinitely, with each one attempting to make a joke, one-up the previous commenter, and be the least funny you could imagine. Story 18. All people do not share the same personal views. Any sort of mass grouping of people with one idea always annoys me. Also, I dislike people who project when giving advice. Not, "I've been through something similar and this is what I've done." No, I've just seen many people giving bad advice based on their negative experiences and the toxic perspective it gave them, especially to young posters. Story 19. The need to be the actually person. Overused, predictable, stupid jokes can also be found in many posts in this subreddit. Story 20. I think it weirds me out because its ubiquity seems to be driven by everyone talking to chat generative pre-trained transformer, which overuses it. It is strange to think that our language models are now training us. Story 21. I do not find it frustrating, but I find it corny now. When someone mentions their spouse, the common response is, "I also choose their wife or husband." Story 22. You win the internet, dog talk, and edit. Thanks for the award speeches infuriate me to the maximum. Story 23. You need to get a divorce and hire a lawyer. Not every conflict or disagreement needs to result in divorce. Story 24. It does not bother me, but I never understood the need to let people know you fixed your spelling or grammar. Edit. Fix spelling error. Story 25. When Reddit insists you said something totally different than, and sometimes even the complete opposite of, the comment you actually wrote. Like seriously, it is right there to reread if you understand it incorrectly. Story 26. This is more of a complaint about the state of the internet and the commoditization of social media, and the substitute phrases used to avoid saying inappropriate words, such as "wanna live" or many sexually related phrases. Policing language does not solve the perceived problem it is trying to address. People should not tell others to harm themselves, make threats, or engage in similar behavior, but it will happen anyway regardless of the language used. I believe that sanitizing language makes these types of statements seem less significant than they actually are, which makes people more likely to say them because they do not include explicit words. We should not be casual about these issues, but we should also be able to use the actual language that refers to them instead of using euphemisms to bypass filters intended to make content acceptable to advertisers. Story 27. Hard agree or disagree. Also, having to scroll past the same 20 people making the same tired jokes in every thread to find any discussion of merit. Yes, you too chose his wife. We know. Please be quiet. Story 28. I also know this person's spouse. Actually, source? Insert commonly used psychology or therapist term here. Story 29. When people assume you know what they mean when they use an abbreviation, they use it throughout the post without explanation. Story 30. It is almost like, typically followed by something unpleasant. Also, the actually thing people do here where they think they can completely disregard your post because of some minor point they latch onto. Story 31. Honestly, just the snarky comments that get upvoted when you ask a general question with a specific parameter like what product is the best and under a certain price, and they leave a snarky comment without actually offering any genuine answers. Then, the people of that niche hobbyist community massively upvote it. It's just condescending behavior like, okay buddy, I'm not an expert in the hobby you spend your entire day focusing on. Sorry for asking a question with a price point, but if you don't have a real answer, just don't comment. People leave unhelpful comments just to feel good and superior while not actually helping. It's very unfortunate. This happens a lot on online discussion platforms. Story 32. On accident. As in, I discovered this subreddit on accident. When did it become on accident instead of by accident? Or is this a United States thing? Story 33. Search for the information yourself, or similar phrases. Especially when search engines lead me to the discussion thread where that is the answer. Story 34. I'll preface this by saying I'm a queer liberal atheist elder millennial. I'm the target demographic for Reddit these days. The intense enthusiasm people have for queer performance art here is remarkable. And I don't mean actual queer performers, I mean performing queerness. You have to accept every neopronoun or you're a bigot. You have to accept Tumblr-related identities or you're a bigot. You have to strongly dislike Harry Potter and Chick-fil-A or you're a bigot. It's very exhausting. Reddit is second only to Tumblr as a platform for this, maybe TikTok as well. But if you're not absolutely performing maximal allyship or non-straightness, you're considered the enemy, always. Story 35. Adding nothing to a comment except to say, this. Thank you for the award, kind stranger. Post history checks out. I also choose this guy's wife. Red flag. Any situation where a couple disagrees and the comments are filled with, this is abuse. This is toxic. You need to break up, etc. Story 36. This. Rule 1. Be attractive. Rule 2. Do not be unattractive. Dick is abundant and low value. 69. Nice. People saying literally when they mean figuratively. Story 37. People often use the term gaslight incorrectly. It means more than simply lying to someone. There are also many questions about warning signs and positive indicators. Story 38. When somebody makes a long post and uses many acronyms that are specific to their field of work, it can be confusing. For example, I work in technology, and last week we had 2 work team performance indicators, and in an hour we had 3 key product development reviews. Story 39, we did it, everyone. This quote is especially frustrating when it refers to something I do not want the internet to succeed in, but of course they usually do. No, I am not your boy, and I do not want to be part of your witch hunt group. Story 40. Name-calling or ad hominem attacks instead of arguing against what you disagree with are ineffective. If you resort to name-calling, you have already lost. Otherwise, you would let your argument do the talking. Story 41. I cannot stand when someone quotes a song lyric and people keep it going in the comments. Wow, you all heard that song too? And you remember the lyrics? Story 42. Dude is widely considered to be a gender-neutral term on the internet. For me, it is the general decline in formal writing that makes me angry. Punctuation and the use of real words are important when text is the entire medium. Story 43. You do not need to yell. You do not need all capital letters. You do not need a million exclamation points. You do not need to use a large font. You do not need to put emojis in all your sentences or comments. Story 44. Any legitimate concern about the integrity of one's relationship can be immediately dismissed if you just tell the person they are being insecure and controlling. There is a post on a relationship advice forum right now about a girl planning a sleepover with her gay best friend, and the original poster is being criticized for insecurity, even with the added context that she goes on nights out with her male friends all the time. One is an ex-boyfriend, another was a former friend with benefits, and some of the others have openly propositioned or hit on her, yet the person is still being called insecure. Story 45. Not exactly speaking, but someone in a group asked for strong opinions about that community. I gave my opinion and was permanently banned. Story 46. As a underscore myself on stuff that doesn't matter, like, as an avid chocolate ice cream lover myself, I totally get it if it's some medical or engineering information, but useless factoids about yourself just for the sake of saying it annoy me for some reason. Story 47. Misspelling fascist as fascist. I do not know, but the IMX talk irks me. Maybe I am a hypocrite, but I am fine with that in a language like Spanish because it is grammatical. However, the same thing bugs me in English, and I am not usually a grammar enthusiast. If you want to shorten I am, just use I am. Story 48. Everything lives rent-free in my head. Everything is cooked. They cannot pick up the slightest bit of irony anymore unless it is typed like this, sarcasm. Story 49. On behalf of insert race, gender, or other, I apologize. You do not speak for me. There is a good chance I either do not care, will not apologize, or actually support whatever you are opposing. Also, any sort of sanctimony and the word bootlicker. On controversial opinion threads, I actually like pineapple on pizza gets upvoted like crazy, but an actual controversial opinion gets downvoted to hell. Story 50. Using cooked to describe a situation, as in I am cooked or we are cooked, is usually inaccurate. In nearly all cases, we are not actually cooked. Additionally, it is a spineless way to react to something bad happening. We are only truly in trouble if we do nothing and let the situation persist. Story 51. Aged like a fine wine. Just think of a single other way to describe it. There are others that are obviously annoying and lazy, but this one really does my head in. Story 52. All it means is they are insecure about what they are saying and try to justify it by claiming some sort of authority based on being part of a demographic. I am an American and I am ashamed of this video of a disrespectful American. Like, who cares? What is the point? As a former soldier, this is accurate. Even though this is something completely unrelated to modern soldiering, like 16th century warfare or whatever. Story 53. Am I cooked? Guarantee. My first response to seeing that is a burning desire to slap you with a trout. Story 54. Dear original poster, just say hey or simply hey. Why use obnoxious abbreviations? Medical doctor here, lawyer here, or whatever the occupation is. I don't know why, but the phrasing just annoys me and often it is not true. Thank you for the award, kind stranger. No one cares about that. We know you enjoy the award, but edits like that annoy me. Story 55. When people are condescending and start with, "It sounds like you don't do that often or else you would. I work in sales." There was a salesman here who thought he was an alpha male and believed I did not have the SEAL Team 6 killer, hungry shark salesman mindset. No, our company has problems and you are scamming people. A good product sells itself. Story 56. When having an online discussion, the answer typical Reddit response drives me crazy. It is a typical ad hominem attack and begs the question. If you were saying that, what are you even doing here? Story 57. First, I would have to value your opinion for it to affect me. Second, is that all you are here for? To make people mad? How pathetic is that? Story 58. I am glad we are not hearing people being influenced by extreme ideologies as much anymore. What a stupid trend. Story 59. When people make stupid jokes repeatedly in the comment section, sometimes 90% are bad jokes. I also get annoyed with people trying to do a play on words as a joke. Finally, when they write lyrics. Story 60. Don't people discuss pregnancy before having sex? This question is often seen in sex and relationship forums when someone has had a pregnancy scare. I have never sat a woman down to have a formal talk about pregnancy or abortion before having sex, and no woman has done it with me. If those forum users ever had sex, they would know it is usually spontaneous, especially the first time, and that conversation usually comes later, often after a scare. Story 61. Not speech so much, but I cannot believe how many people do not proofread what they post. Not just in comments. I do not care so much about that, and not simply one or two grammatical or spelling mistakes, but some people are posting things that are borderline illegible. Story 62. This. So much this. Also, referring to people as penis owners or vagina owners, and any other kind of straight-up ridiculous inclusive language. Story 63. Someone disagrees and decides to just downvote without commenting their disagreement, so we cannot have a logical discussion. Very childish. Story 64. Not only Reddit, but I am seeing a rise in sidebar arguments. I hate it. It is such a lazy and insulting way to engage with people you disagree with. I do not like the idea of normalizing that kind of interaction, even though I am well aware that social media is where manners and decency come to die. Story 65. Some street solicitor addressed me as my dude, and I just shook my head. Quite frankly, the user has to have a certain vibe about them to credibly use my guy or my dude. Full stop is incredibly stupid. Story 66. So, what if you never start a sentence with, I mean? Can we assume you do not mean it? Story 67. It's giving annoying vibes. Just finish the sentence. Story 68. I get sarcasm is more tone than anything, but I hate when comments are so blatantly sarcastic and they add /s just to secure upvotes. Story 69. If you are broke, just say it. No, I am not broke. I am just not paying market prices for Pokemon cards. It is a waste of money. Story 70. There has to be a better way to include that context in the title instead of just adding the male or female designation with age in brackets. It is painful to read every time. Story 71. This is not exclusive to Reddit, but when people overuse the term severe before a mental health diagnosis. For example, I have severe autism, anxiety, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and so on. I am sure there are instances where it truly helps contextualize the ailment, and I know it has probably arisen to counteract people who use the terms more casually or without a diagnosis. However, I have known people in real life with the most intense versions of some of these issues, what you would mean when you say severe, and I really doubt they have the desire or capability to post about an argument with their partner or similar matters. Story 72. Break up, leave immediately. These are common pieces of advice when people ask about trivial relationship problems that can be resolved with much simpler options. Story 73. I understand that using sarcasm or joking tags can be helpful for some people, but for me, it slightly ruins the comment. Story 74. The word ass is a noun, not an adjective, and I only ever seem to see it used as a descriptor here. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.